Hi guys, I'm going to provide you with some information for the Individual Guided Video Assessment number 2C for throwing. So this tutorial will help you make your way through the assignment and provide specific examples that we can use before you actually start the assignment. The purpose of this assignment is to examine developmental changes in ballistic skills that were discussed in Chapter 6. Each of these skills can be examined with respect to the developmental level for different component actions, for example, the arms, legs, or trunk. For throwing, we can examine the foot, trunk, humerus, forearm actions, and backswing. These component actions may develop at similar or different rates. For example, an individual may show the same pattern of changes across the developmental stages for the foot and arm actions. For example, both may progress from stage 1, then stage 2, and then both progress to stage 3 together, or at different times. In this assignment, you will learn how to categorize developmental steps or levels for the component actions for the foot, trunk, backswing, humerus, and forearm for throwing. To do this, you will view throwers 4, 8, and 17 in Lab Activity 6.1 of the Web Study Guide. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to sign on to the Human Kinetics website here and go to My eProducts. Then we're going to look at the Lifespan Motor Development 7th edition and click on the Web Study Guide. Then we're going to click on the Web Study Guide on the next page. Then we're going to go to Chapter 6 and we're going to click on Lab Activity 6.1. You can ignore the instructions and introduction that's provided here, and we can go ahead and get started. The first thing you want to do is to make sure you have Figure 6.7 and 6.7b downloaded and easy to see. So here's Figure 6.7 and 6.7b. These images can be found under Modules, in the instructions provided in the announcement on Canvas, or in the book. 6.7 shows the observation plan for throwing for the foot, trunk, and backswing components. 6.7b shows the observation plan for the humerus and forearm actions. Basically, the observation plans are decision trees that help us evaluate what stage or step of each component for different throwers. The foot action is broken into 4 steps. The trunk action is broken into 3 steps, and the backswing is broken into 4 steps. For the humerus, there are 3 steps, and for the forearm, there are 2 steps. So the good news is there are 2 guided videos that we can look at. We will work our way through the guided video for Thrower 1 together. You want to make sure that the observation plans are easy to see as we watch the throwers. So let's watch the video and let's start with the foot action. The thrower takes a pretty large step with the foot opposite or contralateral to the throwing arm. When we look at the observation plan, that means that the thrower is in step 4 of the foot action because he takes a long contralateral step. Next, let's watch the video and pay attention to the trunk action. The large contralateral step forces the thrower to rotate his hips. This already puts him in step 2 or step 3 of the trunk action. When we look at the observational plan for the trunk action, the question that differentiates step 2 from step 3 is block versus differentiated rotation. Block rotation means that the hips and shoulders rotate at the same time. Differentiated rotation happens when the hips move first and then the shoulders rotate. So let's go back and rewatch the video. So here, the hips and the shoulders seem to rotate together. So this thrower is in step 2 of trunk action using block rotation. Now let's look at the backswing. This thrower does show a backswing, but the question is whether the hand drops below the waist during the backswing. And if not, does the ball swing outward, like to the side and up and around? So here we can see that the hand drops below the waist. So this thrower is in step 4 of the backswing. Now let's look at figure 6.7b and focus on the humerus action. So the humerus is the upper bone of the arm closest to the shoulder. The first question is if the elbow and upper arm move forward at the shoulder level, forming a right angle with the trunk. So here we can see that the humerus forms a right angle to the trunk and the elbow is at shoulder level. To differentiate step 2 from step 3, we have to look at the moment in which the trunk is front facing. Here the elbow is in line with the trunk. The pictures here are really helpful to help us differentiate between step 2 and step 3. We can see that the thrower is in step 3 because the elbow is pointed to the right side and is in line with the outline of the trunk. Lastly, let's rewatch the video and determine the step for the forearm action. Here we need to watch the movement of the ball in the thrower's hand and the upper arm in relation to the humerus. When the thrower is front facing, the humerus moves forward first and the forearm is stationary. You can see this here. So the humerus moves forward first and the ball is pretty stationary. The deepest lag is reached before the shoulder is front facing. So we can see that here. So that's the deepest lag and the shoulders are not completely front facing. So this thrower is in step 2 of forearm action. So let's go through the guided questions about thrower 1 and make sure we're assessing the developmental stage for each component correctly. Let's hit the next button. First, yes, the thrower takes a step when throwing. To check our answers, we can click the Submit button. Next, we know that the thrower takes a contralateral step. And we know that the thrower took a large step that was half the height of the thrower. So we were correct in determining that the thrower was in step 4 of the foot action. Now for the trunk action, the trunk did rotate. And we also saw that the hips rotated. But the hips did not rotate forward before the trunk. So again, the thrower is in step 2 using block rotation for the trunk action. For the backswing, we saw that the arm dropped down and behind the body. The hand did drop below the waist. So the thrower is in step 4 of the backswing. For the humerus action, we saw that the elbow and the upper arm moved forward at the shoulder level. At the moment of front facing, the elbow was pointed towards you at the side. So the thrower should be in step 3 of the humerus lag. For the forearm action, the thrower's hand remains stationary as the thrower's shoulders rotated forwards. The deepest lag was reached before the shoulders reached the front-facing position. So the thrower is in step 2 of forearm lag. Okay, so now you're ready to watch the guided video assessment for thrower 2. Again, use figures 6.7 and 6.7b to help you make decisions about the step for each component action. Take notes in terms of the foot, trunk, backswing, humerus, and forearm actions. Once you have watched the video and taken notes, you can hit the next button and start answering questions about thrower 2 and see if your observations were correct. When you feel pretty good about doing the guided assessment, then you're going to move to the non-guided throwers, numbers 3 through 17, found here. And again, for this assignment, you're going to look at throwers 4, 8, and 17 for the quiz. Remember that before you start the quiz, watch the videos for those 3 throwers. Make notes in terms of what step they're in terms of the observation plan for each component action, And then once you have taken these notes, you can go ahead and begin the quiz. During the quiz, I would have the assessment videos up, as well as the observation plans, and then have the quiz questions up on a separate screen. That way you can always refer back to the actual videos, the observation plans, and your notes while taking the quiz. Remember that the quiz is timed for 30 minutes, so it's very important that you work quickly and that you have already made your observations for each of the different throwers and are really only going back to the video and the observation plans or your notes to make sure you're on the correct track. If you have any questions, please email me as soon as possible. I'm happy to help you work through thrower 1 again, or one of the other throwers that we don't have to evaluate for the quiz, to make sure you're on track for evaluating the component actions. Good luck, guys!